like I'll hang around with these people, but I'm not gonna let them rub off on me. But that's not actually true, because so you're coughing, you don't feel well, you're like, oh man, I just want to feel normal. I just want to go back to normal. But when you're in that normal, you don't think anything of it. A lot of people think, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not gifted enough to do great things, right? They feel hindered by I can live my own speed. I don't have to rush or go too slow. I can just live my life at the speed that I want to. So I think keeping that in mind, being mindful of that, can really help your outlook on other people and be more patient and understanding.
Mindfulness. What would you say is important for mindfulness in today's age in 2025?
One more main thing I want to add is that
Welcome back to the Thomas Mattia podcast, everybody. I'm so grateful that you guys are here today. I have a good friend on, Ethan Cochrane. We're going to be talking about a powerful book called Outliers, and we'll be talking about mindfulness, confidence, and other topics. And these are some topics that are going to really benefit you in life. So make sure to stick to the end. And if you enjoy this type of content, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Road to 1 million subs, but before that, let's just get to 100. So yeah.
Before we get started, I just want to say thank you very much for having me on the pod.
No worries. So yeah, Outliers. So when I first mentioned to you about this podcast, you said that whenever you're reading a book, you actually take personal notes. So do you do that for every book that you read?
That's right. I try to do for every book because it helps me retain the information better. And I also, I'll make little side notes when I'm reading. I'll type it down on my computer. It's quicker to type it than actually write it. But yeah, there I get the key points of the chapter and things I want to take away. So I actually remember the things, because a lot of times when you read a book and you skim through it, right, you finish it, you look back, you say, I don't really know what really happened. You have to go back and see the key points you want to retain from it. So it's a good strategy. It helps me take the information better.
And also, as you said, sometimes you can have those moments where you're not catching yourself. And then when you finish reading a book, your mind says, what did I read? So that kind of goes to show how much retention you can increase by doing that method.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the biggest changes from Outliers that changed how you see success?
That's a great question. The book is basically a stories of success, what creates success. And one thing I really thought before reading the book is that, you see these people go from 0 to 100, that just grinded their way up all the way to the top all by themselves, hard work, dedication, persistence. But that's not really always the case. And you see that in the first part of the book. You see that it's not always just people themselves getting to the top. It's people around them, it's their environment, it's being at places at the right time. Getting lucky. There's a luck factor into it. So there's much more that goes on behind the scenes towards success when we look at it.
That's interesting. And you mentioned luck. And what's interesting when you look at it from an outlier perspective is, by that definition, luck is actually just when preparation meets opportunity.
That's right.
So you mentioned all these different environments. So when you mentioned that these outliers in these books who became successful is not by themselves, you're not necessarily just talking about people that helped them along the way. You're talking about other factors, right? As well.
I would say the main part is people and people you meet, people you surround yourself with. You hear it all the time. You're the average of
the five
friends around you, and you're like, oh yeah, whatever. This doesn't make any sense, right? I'm different now. I'm just gonna be, I'll hang around with these people, but I'm not gonna let them rub off on me. But that's not actually true, because you're looking at you attract the people and hang around with people you have the same interests and goals with, and whether you realize that or not, it's gonna rub off on you. Whether it's good study habits, or if it's motivation, dedication towards certain things.
Yeah.
If your friends are partying every weekend, where do you think you're going to be? In the library? Probably not.
Yeah.
Right? It's a key environment, and that's a big pillar.
So even if you don't think that it influences you, like your opinion doesn't necessarily matter because it does, like in a sense.
Yeah, because if you think you can just go by and be like, I'm not gonna let it rub off on me, I'm
Yeah,
different, it subconsciously, uh, like your
that's
brain subconsciously absorbs its environment. See with like upbringing and stuff, how kids like mimic the actions of their parents, like their demeanor and mannerisms, right? And you bring it up, and they say, "Oh, I'm nothing like my dad. I don't do that." They don't see it because it subconsciously seeps into the consciousness.
and that's same with the circle.
Exactly.
That's why you need, like, especially in university like this, that's why you need that, David Kim to get that fifth person who's a good study inspiration.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, what made you come to read this book and other books that you read? Like, do you look through Goodreads, or how do you come about them?
This one was actually given to me by my dad.
Mhm.
It was a gift for my dad after a very successful business year.
Mhm.
So he gave it to me to read, and I really enjoyed it. And I explored the author a little more, Malcolm Gladwell. And I bought the series of books that I want to read.
A series by him?
Yeah, it's like self-improvement series. Books such as Blink, The Tipping Point,
Mhm.
Talking to Strangers.
If you
All
could,
great
could you
stuff.
give like an elevator pitch for those, or
Elevated pitch.
or you just like vaguely know the title and you're interested in it?
I know the basis of most of them, but mostly outliers.
Mhm.
But kind of, it's basically self-improvement and thinking about the power of the mind.
Mhm.
Like one of the main points is like little actions matter. It accumulates.
Mhm.
It gets the ball rolling. So
Yeah, the little actions do matter. So, this is actually on an unrelated note, but I was trying to find my thought,
yeah.
and I'm not sure if you know this one motivational speaker. See, what I did there was a long pause when I'm trying to catch the thought that I want to say,
Exactly.
because it makes you look more informed than when you're saying or like.
Right.
So like let me look at the next question I have.
It's a pretty good strategy, actually.
Yeah. So in terms of this book, how much of success do you think is luck versus effort?
Like an effort. I would say it's more so putting yourself in a good position to explore these new opportunities. You got to make an effort to get yourself there first, to get to that point, to even be lucky. A saying that I hear sometimes is you make your own luck, right?
Yeah.
Like you gotta work hard and put yourself in the best position to reach these new opportunities in your life.
And part of that includes learning how to do that by reading these books such as Outliers.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
go ahead.
There's a lot of knowledge out there on the internet these days, and reading through books that people don't really, not like really inclined to pick up. It's a book. It's boring. Like you don't want to read it. But there's lots of good knowledge and a lot of things you can pick up and learn from it.
Yeah, that's a good point, because also in the Weldon Library here at Western and the Huron Stacks, it's crazy how you see all of these like historical books, economic books, and all of this, including the internet, and most of it will never be like explored, which is a fascinating thought.
Yeah, knowledge is sitting there. Never been read, not going to be read. It's just there for the taking.
So, what would you say to someone who is looking to improve, but instead of reading like a book, they don't want to do this. They just want to go for a motivational quote. So, what's the power that a book holds when it can just be summarized, or could it just be summarized in a sentence?
I think you take more out of it when you read it. How things are easier said than done. I can say like, oh, yeah, I want to go to the gym tomorrow, or like I want to do this better.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no impact by me reading a quote. There's no impact. There's no actual real. There's no examples, like no like actual examples that they could mention in a book that you can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't really build that connection to it. It's just information that you just read. Goes in one ear, out the other, right?
So it's not as immersive, whereas a book, you're spending more time with it and subconsciously thinking about it.
Exactly, and make connections to yourself and how you can implement it in your own life.
Mm-hmm. So, what other books do you see yourself reading after this? Do you just stick with nonfiction, or do you go switch around to fiction as well?
I switched around to fiction as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of really good creative writers,
Mm-hmm.
and such as yourself.
Such as myself. Go read Tempus if you want. Good science fiction book. Link is down below, as well as my website where you can see my other short stories and publications. Aspiring to be great, but people like Malcolm Gladwell and others have raised the bar very high.
Yeah, I think it's good to immerse yourself in different genres and stuff. Trying to get your creativity going.
Mm-hmm.
Following along in the story.
Just as I remember you mentioned one of your favorite childhood series was Bone, right?
No.
No. Oh, maybe that was someone else. Was it Rick Riordan?
Yes, the Percy Jackson
series,
as well as Harry Potter for sure. Those books kind of sparked the reading that I kind of carried through. But yeah, those stories, great pieces of writing. It's easy to read. It's really enjoyable when you pick up a good book. Like, you don't want to put it down.
Yeah.
The hardest thing is picking it up though, because your brain doesn't want to.
Doesn't
want to pick it up. It's more so delayed gratification, because it's not just instant action stimulation all the time. You're kind of building up towards the plot, the premise, the characters.
Yeah, that's a great point, because that delayed gratification is something I think we're missing now in society, and especially me. I'm currently reading 1984. I've talked about it on a prior podcast, but the problem is, even though I'm halfway into the book and I have the experience of enjoying it, it's still much easier to pick up my phone or go on social media.
Mm-hmm.
So what I think is interesting about that delayed gratification is that because we're so used to these short-term gratification methods and kind of hedonistic pleasures, you kind of block out the opportunity of the valuable life lessons you can learn from books.
Exactly. Yeah, it's easier just to go scroll on your phone, right?
Yeah.
It's constant stimulation all the time, right? Just life moves fast. There's a lot of stuff going on, so just to go on your phone. But to wind down and want to pick up that book, I think it's good for mindfulness and clearing your mental mind state. And yeah.
Even though if you're not going to be completely sure about it, it's always a good idea to go pick up that book.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's an interesting take on outliers. Before we switch on to mindfulness, is there anything else you'd like to add on outliers?
One more main thing I would want to add is that a lot of people think, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not gifted enough to do great things, right? They feel hindered by their natural ability, and they're less motivated to practice and reach their goals, right? But in one of the chapters that I read, goes someone with a really high IQ, let's say 144, is just as likely as to win a Nobel Peace Prize as someone who's just smart enough, who meets the threshold. Someone that's IQ 120, 115, or whatever it is. There's a certain threshold that needs to be met for you to be successful and be the best. And after that, it goes towards practice. And also, if you think about basketball, sure, it's an advantage to be tall, but you just have to be tall enough, right?
Yeah. That's interesting, because so many people feel hindered by their own ability when they could be in over that gap that you mentioned. You don't need to be
exactly
like IQ of 144 to do this company and so.
Exactly.
And that's actually what I think is one of those valuable life lessons I learned from media, from recently watching Fight Club, if you ever seen that.
I have not actually. It's on the watch list for sure, though.
Yeah. So before I go into the point, it's one of the only movies that ever. Oh, I can't reveal that because it's much better when you see it for the first time. But essentially, as an author, I'm always trying to find a good lesson to put into a book, like a valuable life lesson. And it's always hard to extrapolate it because I always like fear that it could just be hindered into one quote. But what I realized is along this aspect of trying to find the best quote, I think what you mentioned is simply, regardless of the ability you currently have, simply the Nike logo says it best. Just do it. Because even if you miss your shot, in our generation, the slang is shoot or shoot, as in referring to basketball.
Right.
All that matters is you put like the shots up, because the percentage of accuracy, for example, with a business, it doesn't matter. If you start 5, or let's go extreme, if you start 20 businesses and 19 of them fail, but 1 does well, you still succeeded.
Exactly.
So that's a really good. I'm grateful that I got that extra take out of you of, regardless of circumstances, still go for it. Yeah. So mindfulness. What would you say is important for mindfulness in today's age in 2025?
Obviously, for mindfulness is so the one key point is that you never know what's going on in someone else's life. When you meet someone, you see the tip of the iceberg. You see what the facade and like the mask they may wear, right? But you don't know the story. You don't know what they've been through or what they're thinking, why they did something. You can only assume, make your best bet. So I think keeping that in mind, being mindful of that, can really help your outlook on other people and be more patient and understanding.
Well, masks that they wear, it's really profound, because you never know, as you mentioned, what's happening in their own personal life. Because we as well, if you flip it and you take the approach of not having empathy, you could just take the baggage that you have from your own life and then project that onto others. So before you do that, it's important to notice and be mindful that other people have different circumstances that they're going through as well. So even, well, you weren't necessarily speaking about if they're being rude, but let's just say like the cliche, like high school bully. You always have to be mindful and always aware of what other people are going through. And that's why um, in Christianity it actually says, pray for your enemies. So regardless of the situation, you always have to be mindful of what's happening. So what would you say for someone who's getting into mindfulness? Could you like just break it down in like simple layman's words? Like, what is it really about, and like what are they getting into? Like, what should they know for their mindfulness journey?
I would say being grounded and open. Being grounded to yourself and being aware of things around you. Have a good perspective, and also another thing I would say would be,
What do you mean by grounded?
I'd say grounded as in like true to yourself, true to your values, and not just being a lot of distractions going on, and you can be
like right now with all the distractions.
That's true, right? You can just go along with the wind, go along with the crowd, but staying grounded, you can see stuff your own way. For example, if someone is being rude, oh, this guy's weird. I don't know why he acts like that. Like, he's so shy, he's quiet, right? And all your friends, other people or your friends might be like, oh, he's weird. Don't worry about it. Just go, right? Like going with the wind, right? But staying grounded, like maybe reflect upon that.
So even though, like we may have just said, just do it, take a moment to ground yourself and reflect on like what's going to happen and the consequences, right?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
But not too much, I would say, though, because I find when I take too long to reflect on what's going to happen, that ends up being leading to inaction.
Right. You know, doing nothing is an action. Actually, you know, when you're not making a move, it's actually a move. You're just
It is.
taking more time.
How
Right?
so?
Well, first of all, if I say, I don't know if I want to apply to this school or go here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just prolonging myself and waiting, and that is a move.
You're choosing procrastination.
Yeah.
So so now that we know how to go into mindfulness, what would you say are like the benefits that you've seen in your life from this?
Um, I would say kind of allows me to use my own perspective and kind of slow things down. Um, you know, and really think about things and values that I find most important.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I can live at my own speed. You know, I don't have to rush or go too slow. I can just live my life at the speed that I want to.
So it brings a sense of calmness and clarity to
For
life.
sure.
Yeah, I think that's very important because we're going into summer break now. Most of us are going into jobs and whatnot. Before this, when we were in high school, without this mindfulness and this grounding and like taking life slower in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
it would just pass by without you really taking it in. So, in a way, I could say by being mindful, you're actually living more.
I would say so. Like taking the time to
Mm-hmm.
you know look around a little bit and appreciate the things that you have. You
Like,
know.
exactly, like that one time we were going to go study, but then we just admired that view from that mountain.
Exactly.
Or today when all of us went and played soccer just because it was in the moment. You know, the
Exactly.
saying is, I want to say it related to this is just more be more grounded. Like Zach was actually grounded after soccer today, and yeah, just take it by the moment. Like last night, I had playing ping pong with a good friend after writing an exam,
Right.
and just yeah, I really like that approach of just like taking it slower, just like enjoying the ride.
Yeah, I think that when things are going good, we
Mm-hmm.
don't have such a good time. We're enjoying so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't take a step back and say, you know,
Yeah.
why are things going good right now? You know, what's the environment I'm in? Who are the people I'm around? Right?
Mm-hmm.
You just think it's normal. Like I feel great. Like I'm not gonna take a step to just really think about what's going on. But on the contrary, when things are going bad,
Then you're really
you're thinking of
immersed.
every little thing that is going bad. Like,
Mm-hmm.
man, what am I doing? Like, I can't believe this is happening right now.
Yeah.
How did I end up here?
And this
Thinking of
turns
all the
into
little steps, and you're just
cycles.
thinking in your head. But when it's the good times, it's normal. You know, I'm not gonna think about it. So I
Yeah.
think if you take the time and think about and appreciate the little things that create the good times,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah,
you'll
it's so
feel and
true.
appreciate it better.
That's what I want to say, or a lesson I've learned from a writing course here that I was really grateful to take with an amazing professor, Madeline Bassnett. The first thing you learn is how to make the reader more immersed in the story. So imagine people are going to books for entertainment and they want to be immersed in it.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the number one way to be more immersed in the story, it kind of shows you that maybe that's the thing you should be doing like in your life as well. And yeah, it's really important, I would say, to be more mindful in those good scenarios because as you said, it's going normal. And then because you're not reacting to it, all the memories of your self-reflection are just in those times of despair and drought
Exactly.
and all of the above.
Yeah.
So that's why a good exercise I like to do is before bed every night is just say three things I'm grateful for and try not to catch myself saying the same thing. Like before, I just say like I'm grateful for my parents, I'm grateful for my cat.
Right.
or just like grateful for waking up.
Mhm.
And it's good to see like every little thing. And one of the ways, I'm sorry, you're the guest here, but one of the ways that of writing these immersion is
Mhm.
incorporating of the five senses of sight, smell, taste, audio, and sight, smell, taste, hearing, and smell.
Right.
So, like even in a moment of this, like noticing your breathing and like how the cold air is entering your nose, like noticing the feeling of the floor on your foot and like noticing that you're sitting down, like the red chairs, like,
Yeah, it's taking in the moment,
taking a
taking the
moment.
time to snapshot. You can use the phrase snapshot. Little things. Because when let's say for me, when I go to the cafe every day, it's normal. I see all my friends, I'm laughing, right? Sometimes I'll take a second to be like, hey, like, who's here right now? Like, what are we talking about? Like, that's something I want to remember. So,
Yeah, because you can just get lost. Even if it's a good moment, you can just get lost in it. So it's good to take that mental
you can definitely
snapshot.
get lost in it. Yeah, for sure. To say, like, going back to appreciating like the little things. Let's say you like this, like when you're sick, right? Let's say you're coughing, you don't feel well. You're like, oh man, I just want to feel normal. I just want to go back to normal. But when you're in that normal, you don't think anything of it, right? You're like, this is normal. It's a day to day. Like, it's whatever. You're not appreciating about. You're not thinking about it. But when you get sick or you're not feeling as good, you don't feel like yourself. Like, wow, like I should appreciate being like that more.
Yeah, you're saying, oh, I wish I could breathe through my left nostril, but right now we can breathe through both, and you're not like necessarily taking it in like that. So
Exactly.
that is really important and a good life lesson, I'd say. Also, though, I would say is even in those moments when you are going through something bad and you're reflecting on the bad things, I do think you could always find something good, like in the scenario, to reflect on. So regardless, would you say the same?
I would say so, yeah. When things are tough and things are not going your way, there's still things around you that are positive that you can be thankful for. Say maybe you don't get a best grade on the exam, or you kind of mess it up, or you're kind of sick, or you don't feel great, and you're like, well, you know what? For me, personally, I'd be like, I still have to I still have to go eat food. I still have to go see my friends, right? Loving family, and I'm in good health. Everyone I know is in good health for now. Because God forbid something happens, you can change in an instant.
Yeah.
And before you know it, like change is inevitable, right? Just like right now, how we're all moving on to next year.
Yeah.
And I think our ECAM said today, chapter 1 done, right? And it kind of clicked. I was like, it's gonna change. Like, we're not gonna see everybody in the res. We're not gonna be in the caps together. Something that we might have taken for granted the whole year. Not taken for granted, but not really like reflected on it. That we're not gonna be doing that next year. We had a great time, but onto chapter 2.
Yeah, it's interesting how you put more value into that after it's passed. For example, from The Office, Andy has that famous quote where he says, I wish you could just take a moment to stop and live in the good times before they pass, or something along those lines. And mindfulness plays a key factor into that, because like we're moving on, we're going into the next stage, and I just be grateful and like aware of what's happening. And also what you mentioned earlier, correlation, I would say, is like even if you got that bad mark on the exam or whatever, aside from our friend group and all these little friend groups and your family, like we're all here at university for the same purpose.
Right.
You're not the only person going through these things.
Exactly.
Like there's people who have done this before. So
and they're all right. They're looking back like, oh, why was I stressing about that? It's a little insignificant thing. Like I shouldn't be so stressed about it.
Yeah, like why be like in the moment you're stressing about 1220? Well, now it's done. We're here. We're just chilling.
Exactly. You'll get through it. You gotta be confident in yourself that you know you'll get to better days. You're gonna get to better times. You're gonna get through it for sure.
And what would you say about confidence? Did someone open the door for her? Yeah, we're just filming on the ground floor and the nightlife. So, what would you say to people who don't have confidence?
I think a lot of people that don't have confidence, it stems from themselves being so negative, being really harsh on themselves. And a quote that I like to reflect on is, "You can't be your worst enemy because the world's already against you." Right?
Oh, it's kind of dark.
But it's the truth, right?
Yeah.
Like,
because you're not supporting yourself.
Exactly. The things are already stacked against you not to succeed. You can't just add on to that, right? You got to be there for yourself. You can't be your worst enemy. You got to be someone who you can rely on, support.
Yeah.
Right? You got to be your own best friend. And also being mindful of how you're treating yourself. If you always have negative thoughts and like, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not smart enough, I can't do this, it's too hard, right? Those thoughts really play and make a big difference.
Take a toll on you.
Exactly.
So one solution to confidence, or at least a stepping stone, would just be mindfulness, right?
Yeah, tying back to the mindfulness, being mindful of how you're treating yourself.
Yeah, one problem though is like confidence with me especially. I find it's kind of like the business cycle. Like there's like ups and downs.
Right.
And like it takes a while. It takes, that first yes to get back in the groove.
Exactly.
So like how would you, like something I struggle with and maybe people struggle at home is like maintaining confidence once you've achieved it. What do you say to that?
I'd say going back to like cycle first, you said like the business cycle of ups and downs. I think you need to realize that through every like down, it's what you do in that down. What are you saying to yourself and how you get out of it? Because every time you take that dip, it's gonna make you stronger, right? The next time you get in that dip, you're like, yes, I've been here before. I know that I can get through this, and I'm gonna get back. I'm gonna get back up.
Yeah. There's actually a quote that says, well, I was gonna say it, but there's a quote. I don't think it's biblical. I just think someone said it. But it says, like, I'm grateful for these hard times because hard times produce character and they produce, good work ethic and all these traits. Whenever you're going into hard times, you're actually learning from something from that and actually sharpening the iron and improving a little. So even though you're going down, I would argue that the next dip won't be as bad because you know how to deal with it and how to cope with it now.
Through every dip that you get out of, you're going to be more confident.
Yeah.
And that's guaranteed for sure.
Before I move to the next thing, anything else you'd like to say for confidence?
I think confidence also comes from trying to be yourself, not trying to be someone you're not. You think about like different archetypes that other people are using. Someone who's like really outgoing, really extroverted, they're always talking to people. Like, oh, maybe I want to be more like that. If you force yourself to be in someone else's shoes, you're not going to feel comfortable. And how are you supposed to feel confident when you're not even trying to be yourself? So
yeah, it's true. Like, what are you being confident about if you're not being confident about yourself?
Exactly. See in sports all the time, you see like different warm-up routines. There's some guys out and about laughing, laid back, relaxed. There's a guy over there who's locked in listening to music. You have to really find what works for you, and growing within that and going through trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you find that happy medium or that golden spot, like, hey, this works for me. I'm confident. I'm comfortable in this, and therefore I'm going to be more confident.
Yeah, it's true. And also, one of the interesting things that you can see in science literature, our body can actually trick us into being confident. From just having your better posture, better eye contact. At one point, your brain's going to say, "Oh, I'm standing tall.
Right.
I'm looking dapper for the event."
Exactly.
And then what's interesting there is you're actually being mindful about like all the good things, and so that kind of activates the confidence. So confidence, other than just having it naturally, you also have to put yourself in that mental state to be aware of what's happening.
And also, I think something that also stems from like lack of confidence is, like I said, trying to be someone you're not, and also trying to impress other people. Someone like, oh, I want to be more confident. I want to want people to like me. Like, you're doing all these things for other people and not doing it for yourself. So when you reach those goals, something that you think is going to make people like you more, you're not as happy. You're not as confident. Like, well, I did it for other people. It's the intention behind the action.
So you're not being satisfied at the end of the day if you do it that way.
Right.
Yeah. So I would say, I actually think, I'd go as far to say that I think you're actually destroying your life if you're not being confident and mindful. Because for one, you're not being present in the good times. And in the good times, you're not even confident to, go ask for that job offer, go ask that girl out, go take that risk.
Right.
So yeah, you could really, like, although that can destroy your life through that inaction, like, there's always today. You can always make the change, even if you're not feeling well, like, regardless of the predicament you're in. There's always something you can do. There's always other people who are in the same situation that you are. People who have done it before. Yeah, so
there's always going to be, no matter what situation you're in, there's always going to be that best move. And I know you're a big chess player.
Yeah.
You can relate to that. But when things are not going well, like you gotta step back. You might lose. You might blunder a piece. You're gonna sit there and give up and just wait and waste time on the clock.
Yeah.
Or you're gonna figure out how you can put yourself in a better position.
Yeah, because even if you're in a bad scenario, a good move is still a good move.
Exactly.
Yeah. So thank you very much for being on here. What I do for every guest that I have on at the end is I ask them, in one word only, if you could boil down some philosophical advice. I know this is kind of contradictory in a sense to the whole deep dive on books,
right?
Because it's so expansive. But in one word, what is a great life lesson that you want to share to the world? In one word.
One word, I'd say being resilient, for sure. Whatever life throws at you, stand your ground, right? Be confident in yourself, be confident in your abilities, so you can thrive and achieve the goals that you want, no matter what.
Ethan Cochrane, everybody. It was a pleasure to have you on.
Pleasure to be here.
That was a great one. In the moment, we didn't even have this plan today. We're just like, or you were actually like, hey, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
So, yeah, just be aware of the opportunities that come to you and whatnot. Yeah, that was a great conversation. Thanks for having you on.
Thank you.
If you like that, make sure to let us know in the comments what you thought about that. And make sure to smash that subscribe button. It really helps a lot if you'd like to see more like this. Have a wonderful day, everyone.